Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
I guess started from her really, posted one of your photos and sort of questioned the level of opposition that you're fighting. Yeah, what was that all that back and forth about, would you say?
First of all, would Ben Shalom put her back in the ring after her last performance? And second of all, I'm not quite sure what she's saying about my opponent's not good or whatever, because my opponent actually beat the girl that just beat her and knocked her down 3 times in a 4-rounder. So, to be honest, she's delusional. That's the way I put it. I honestly think she's delusional. She's trying to bring me down because obviously she's just lost. So, nothing she's saying is making sense at all. She can go and fight the last girl that I've fought, you know. Yeah. She can, and if she beats her, let's get it on. I know I wiped the floor with her, definitely. So right now, she's come off a loss. You know, I'm going up in my career now. If she wants to come and fight, go fight the girl that I last beat and beat her. Simple. I was getting asked questions about her after her loss, and I was nothing but respectful because, you know, we're all fighters at the end of the day. Who am I to comment straight after, you know, something like that's happened to a fighter? I'm not that type of person, but now she's come for me and disrespected me and thinks she can put, oh, she's a nice girl at the start of a sentence to sweeten the blow. No, don't disrespect me. You know, I might be 20 years of age, but she can't come and disrespect me like that, you know. So I would love to fight her. I'd love to get in the ring with her and show her what's what.
That is young Fran Hennessy. Fran, short for Francesca. Responding to criticism, call-outs from the former WBA bantamweight champion Shannon Courtenay, who had this and that to say after Fran's last fight, seemingly criticizing her opponent choice. Fran is 5-0 with 1 KO.
20 years old.
The young daughter of famed British promoter Mick Hennessy. The Fighting Hennessys. It's not just Fran that boxes, it's her brother too.
Francesca.
Fran competes in the super bantamweight division. Super bantamweight, that's where Ellie Scottney reigns as a unified champion. That's where Mexico's own Yemi Mercado holds the WBC, and Nazarena Romero of Argentina holds the WBA. That's where Fran competes, and that's where a fight between her and Shannon could materialize. Though Shannon lost her last fight, she lost her comeback fight. You heard what Fran said.
All of it was true.
Where do you get off criticizing a 5-0 20-year-old fighter when you lost your last fight?
Read the room, Shannon.
You know what I think it was? There's got to be a reason that Ben Shalom gave Shannon Courtenay that opportunity, that he decided to let her box on one of his shows. He didn't sign her. He didn't agree to a multi-fight deal with her, but he did use her, likely because he wanted to fatten her up for Fran Hennessy.
The problem is Shannon didn't hold up her end of the bargain. She didn't win her last fight.
Strategy likely was that because Shannon had been out a while, roughly 2 years, Ben would get her a tune-up fight, then move her into a Fran Hennessy fight, but she lost.
She really needs to stop using that lip filler. She looks better without it.
Cut it out, Shannon. Fran debuted as a professional in September of last year. She's racked up 5 professional fights, 5 professional wins, only 20 years old, with her whole career ahead of her. Shannon Courtenay for Fran would be a good litmus test, a good acid test, a former champion.
They share a common opponent in Dora Norak, who Fran fought in June of this year.
Fran's coming off a win over a then unbeaten Ana Moraes, who she outpointed over 8 rounds. I expect to see Fran in the ring with Shannon next year.
In spite of that setback that Shannon suffered, she's carrying on with the plan. If she's calling out Fran in spite of how awkward and cringeworthy it is, it's because she's trying to gain some traction, some footing in her own career.
Show that she's still got it by taking on a young unbeaten up-and-comer in Fran Hennessy that boxes on the Sky Sports boxer side of things.
Power would have to go to Shannon. The edge and power, experience too.
I've seen at least 2 or 3 of Fran Hennessy's fights, and Fran's not really big on power. She's big on speed, movement, agility, mobility. She's quick, but she's not that strong. She doesn't punch that hard. So the edge and power would go to Shannon, and the edge and experience, but Fran has a higher ceiling.
A mid-range to inside fighter.
Boxing is in her blood. She gets it from her old man. Mick promoted fights, whereas Fran fights and fights.
Always smiling, a bubbly personality, and a generally likable fighter, but you can see that this rubbed her the wrong way.
Somebody as experienced as Shannon maturated taking shots at her.
She doesn't like it. She's not taking it lying down. I expect that we're going to see this fight next year. The edge goes to Francesca.
At first glance, I would go with Francesca to win a points decision, out-hustling Shannon Courtenay.
Outmaneuvering her, outboxing her.
Fran Hennessy on points is the pick. Men's super middleweight news: on the heels of his moral victory that really is just a defeat, Edgar Berlanga carries Canelo Alvarez confidence to spring return bout. Wants to take his time coming back, spend some of the money he made on tacky clothing and useless jewelry.
Jesus, lighten up.
Edgar Berlanga has stood at the sports mountaintop, relishing the ring walk before a filled arena and tasting the challenge of lasting 12 rounds against the most popular fighter of the generation, Canelo Alvarez. Creating a fitting encore to that is a daunting task. That experience was amazing, Berlanga said Friday on ProBox TV's Top Stories, where he joined ProBox TV founder and boxing scene owner Gary Jonas, not related to the Jonas Brothers, on an episode.
No relation to Natasha Jonas either.
If I could go out and relive that moment, I'd do it over and over. I made it to the pinnacle of boxing and showed what kind of fighter I am. I went out and performed when everyone was talking this stuff. The sky's the limit for me now. Berlanga manager Keith Connolly told Boxing Scene Wednesday that he's aiming to bring Berlanga home to Puerto Rico for a March main event that is currently in discussions.
I look at Edgar as a testament to the postmodern American fighter and their penchant for faking it until you make it, because while you did make it to a Canelo Alvarez fight, you only got there by swerving everybody else.
But he made it there, landing the sweepstakes, the Canelo Alvarez golden ticket, only because of how beatable he seems.
The wrong reasons.
How beatable he is. At 27, Brooklyn's Berlanga started his career with 16 consecutive knockouts. Full of swagger, he found himself in deep with 3-belt super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez. The Mexican 4-division champion knocked down Berlanga in the third and cruised to a UD win.
That moral victory, so many thought that Canelo would stop Edgar Berlanga. He didn't.
Seemingly a feather in Edgar's cap that he was able to go the distance with someone who was so widely favored to knock him out, though only doing so because you spent most of the fight circling away from him. You didn't engage him like John Ryder did or Jaime Munguia. You didn't try to make a fight of it.
The goal wasn't winning, the goal was surviving, just not getting knocked out and being happy to not get knocked out while making a lot of money.
A substantial underdog in that bout, Berlanga claimed a moral victory by going the distance and embracing words of encouragement from Alvarez. That Berlanga told me, "You'll be a problem in the sport," at the conclusion of their bout. He knows, Berlanga said. Now the contender moves on to his Puerto Rico card, headlining a DAZN show against an opponent that is yet to be announced and will likely not be a top-shelf contender in the division.
They're talking about putting him in there with Gabe Rosado.
Those tests will await later in the year, with substantial foes in former IBF champion and current WBA interim champion Caleb Plant, former middleweight champion Jermall Charlo, and the other 2024 Alvarez challenger Jaime Munguia in weight. Lucrative fights, all of them. Big fights, the Jaime Munguia fight being the biggest, because that would be yet another chapter in the Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry. I would favor Jaime to win that fight.
The gift and the curse. That you just had the biggest fight that you can have at this weight, and everything else will pale in comparison, though if you want to keep making big purses and big money,
it's not going to be as big as what you made with Canelo. Not as substantial. But if you don't want to get stuck making peanuts on the dollar, well, you do have to fight people. But how many of those people would you pick Edgar to beat? Would you pick him to beat Caleb Plant with any certainty? Jaime Munguia, Christian Mabili, Bektamir Melenkuziev.
Would you pick him to beat them?
What often happens to fighters that make career high purses, they get it in their head they're supposed to make that every fight moving forward. But every fight moving forward does not yield the same commercial value as a Canelo Alvarez fight.
Would you pick Edgar to beat Vladimir Shishkin? What about William Skull, newly crowned IBF champion?
Diego Pacheco, what about him? Would you pick Edgar Berlanga to beat Diego Pacheco? Edgar already had an overblown sense of self, a big ego, going into the Canelo Alvarez fight. Now that he's made the money that he made, he might be even more difficult to deal with and even more difficult to make a fight for, because he's going to be looking for paydays comparable to that one. And none of those guys pay what Canelo Alvarez pays, but they are risky. So it's a good idea to take Edgar to Puerto Rico for his rebound fight, rebounding off the loss to Canelo Alvarez. That will enable him to make some money.
Momentarily.
Chanel more the A-side to a Caleb Plant or a Jaime Munguia for having fought Canelo because they fought Canelo. They lost to Canelo, the same as you. What is your leverage over them?
Huh?
It doesn't get said enough that the super middleweight division is actually one of the deeper divisions in all of boxing right now, because so much of the conversation centers around Canelo and what Canelo is doing. Who is Canelo going to be fighting? But when you remove him from the equation and you think about who else is there,
It's a deep division.
Edgar Berlanga will be treading deep waters. And you already had the fight with Canelo Alvarez, so you can't wait around for that anymore. See, now things get serious.
You faked it until you made it. Made it far enough that you fought Canelo.
But that's done now, and you have the rest of this division to contend with. It's going to be interesting seeing how Edgar navigates his career now.
Gonna fight more Jason Quigleys and Padraig McCrorys. They're only gonna get you but so much money.
For the big bucks, you know what you've got to do. Who you've got to do it with.
Moral victory because Canelo didn't knock him out.
Forgive me if I'm curt addressing Edgar Berlanga's unbridled mediocrity.
Mediocre!
So they can get him a Gabe Rosado fight in March as a rebound fight, but after that, there are not many places to hide at 168. It is a deep division. There's a lot going on there.
You don't have saving yourself for Canelo to use as an excuse anymore.
Pop that cherry. So what are you gonna do now?
Hey, what's up, Fran? What's up, everyone? I came to inform you about the Kabayel fight. I'm so disappointed by Kabayel pull up the fight. So he doesn't want the smoke. He doesn't want the smoke from the Congolese warrior. So I'm in the gym, like you can see. Just finished training now. I start already my camp, from here, DRC Congo. This is a new gym built up by the president's brother, Mr. Christian Tshisekedi. So I'm looking forward to who's next now. I think I should fight with Big Zhang. I'm asking the Excellency take Alashad if he can make the Big Zhang fight. So I'll be so happy to fight the big man from China. I don't know why they are hiding. I don't know why they are running. I don't know why they don't want the smoke. But I can see that they don't want to get knocked out, and everyone can see that. So I think people now they're believing in me. When I was telling them that these people they don't want to fight me because they know I'll knock them out, the reason is there now. So Kabayel just ran away. The last time was a Big Zhang forgot his shoes. Now Kabayel forgot his band. Look, come and take this t-shirt. I found it here. I was training with. Look at all this sweat.
So you will notice in Martin Bakole's address to Agit Kabayel, who has since withdrawn from the IBF purse bid, that he's asking for Turkey to pay for the fight, pay for the Zhang fight that he now anticipates will be ordered, or, whatever it is. He's asking Turkey to pay for it, likely because that wasn't already arranged. If you take Turkey out of the equation, and he's not the one bankrolling the show, it would be up to Queensbury and Boxer to make the fight, make it amongst themselves, and it likely wouldn't pay out what
he would pay out.
and what Martin hopes to be paid. You gotta understand that neither Martin Bakole or Zhilei Zhang are big draws. They're known, but they're known amongst hardcore boxing fans, not casual boxing fans, and they don't have a big grassroots following. Where would you do it?
Riyadh's season has made it possible for Martin Bakole and Zhilei Zhang, Agit Kabayel, to enter the collective consciousness of the boxing fan, the boxing community that was not otherwise talking about these fighters. But without Riyadh's season,
I swear they got their biggest opportunities. Martin Bakole to box Jared Anderson, Agit Kabayel to box Arslanbek Makhmudov, then subsequently Frankie Sanchez, Zhilei Zhang to box Wilder.
So I'm not surprised that Martin is calling upon Turki Al-Sheikh to make this fight possible, this fight with Zhang, because without him, it might not be.
The fight itself is intriguing because they're both very, very strong punchers.
Don't let him hit you.
So maybe you could give a slight edge in power to Martin Bakole over Zhilei Zhang, that he might be the slightly bigger puncher of the two, though they're both such big punchers that it's a marginal difference. Can Zhang hurt Martin? I think he can, but the same is true in reverse. Zhang comes from the deeper amateur background. He's the more well-schooled amateur, arguably the better boxer, though not the better physical specimen.
Not at his age.
I think by now, enough people have seen Zhang in action that they know he's only good for about 4 or 5 rounds before his output wanes, his activity slows, and he's not doing much of anything. That's what costed him the Joseph Parker fight, who he downed, what was it, 2 times? But he let him off the hook both times.
It's the same with Hrgovic. He downed him too, but he let him off the hook.
Now, the reason he was able to put away Joe Joyce is because Joe only knows one way to fight a fight, and that's to come forward throwing punches and bunches, giving Zhang all the countering opportunities he needs. Is that going to be the situation with Martin?
And Martin's pretty prolific too. Pretty aggressive.
Go getting busy too early with Zhilei Zhang, and that's when he's most dangerous. That's where he might put you out.
At the start of the fight.
I read an article that gave an ETA on this matchup, and I don't know where they would have got that intel from, that we can expect to see Bakole versus Zhang in the spring.
Second quarter of next year.
Now, I don't even know that negotiations between the two teams have started, but between now and the second quarter of next year, there is a lot that can go wrong, and all of this could fall apart. Also, remember that before it even became about Agit Kabayel, who has since withdrawn, it was about Zhang. And according to Martin, Zhang already ducked him. Zhang already swerved him. Is he going to do that again?
Zhang denied it.
But since then, it's not like Zhang announced any fight news of his own. He didn't. This is the most going in terms of news involving Zhilei Zhang.
My guess.
If Turki Al-Sheikh doesn't pick up this fight, then I'm not convinced it happens, because it would be up to Queensbury and Boxer to make it. And I don't think Ben wants to send Martin to Queensbury.
Nope. I think Frank would be more willing to send Zhang to Boxer, but would Zhang be willing to go to Boxer?
What would they offer him?
Kind of money.
These are questions that need answers if we are to look at this fight as a distinct possibility. Martin Bakole's public plea for Turki Al-Sheikh to get involved heralds that he wasn't involved already.
Bit surprised.
Would be ideal to do this fight as part of a Riyadh season show, because whoever wins goes on to challenge Daniel.
They ought to pick it up.